have today, 25th April, the designing in the age of AI. We have two guests today to be as keynote speakers. One is Daniel Rosenberg, the UX consultant and HSA professor, is a prominent figure in the field. He advises the UX design and AI-powered products automation. In his books UX Magic, he explores scientific iteration methodology. Professor Rosenberg receives the ACM Sci-Hi Lifetime Service Award for his contributions. And we have second keynote speaker, Konrad Maj, who actually will open our keynote session. His PhD in sociology, head of the HumanTech Center at SWPS University. His research focus on the social and psychological aspects of AI, the metaverse, and robotics. Konrad has been recognized as outstanding graduate and received the Science Popularizer. I'm a researcher of AI and business process and transformation. I work for the University of Warsaw, and I'm also member of
Dodatkowo jestem członkiem Towarzystwa Sigma Xi. Zacznijmy może teraz od wystąpienia Konrada, które jest zatytułowane poza interfejsem w kierunku projektowania skoncentrowanego na ludzkości. Konradzie, bardzo Cię proszę o zabranie głosu.
Okay, thank you very much for this kind presentation of my what I did before and what I do. Of course, maybe later on we'll talk also about our partners and about our scientific committee, but it will be later on. Okay, but let's present my slide. Okay, I hope that you see. Do you see? Is everything okay? Is it visible, my presentation?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so thanks a lot. The title, as you can see, of my presentation is Beyond the Interface Toward Humanity Center Design. As Piotr mentioned, I am psychologist and I work at SWPS University. I'm head of HumanTech Center. So this is my, let's say, perspective on design and perspective on emerging technologies. I'm not a designer. I'm not also an engineer. So you have to remember that this is also, let's say, humanistic perspective on this topic. But I believe that such voices like my voice would be complementary or maybe supplement to this ongoing debate about future of newest emerging exponential technologies. Okay, so here I prepared, as you see, I prepared three topics, every topic is related to, of course, as I said, social aspect of technology. I'm gonna talk about changing the social system through technology. I would like to compare narrow perspective. I treat user perspective as something narrow perspective and broad perspective, and I treat social or community or maybe humanity perspective as something broadened. And at the end of my talk, I'm going to also touch this topic related to data determinism and feeding AI with data. Let me start with Donald Normand. Probably you know this figure. He's well-known, recognized in the whole world, designer and also professor also of psychology, because he's perfect example of a combination of two perspective, engineer perspective and psychological, let's say, perspective. According to him, user experience design is the process design teams use to create products that provide meaningful and relevant experiences to users. And he wrote many books, among them one of the famous one, probably Design of Everyday Things. And according to him, if we talk about products or services, we have to think about all the experiences that we have with given products or service. Also, what is important, of course, interface, right? Of course, I don't want to go deeper into this topic about user interface design as well, but let me only mention that according to designers, our experiences should be like that, intuitive, right? So interfaces should be intuitive. Everything should be smooth, pleasant. In this case, we may feel that such products are adjust to us, is comfortable, is easy to use it, to operate. So everything is about our nice intuitive experience, and designers focus on that. Of course, I absolutely agree with them, but today I'm going to present something a little bit. I would like to encourage you, encourage you to look beyond the interface, beyond this user perspective of individuals. In my opinion, in my humble opinion, all technological inventions are part of a broader social system. And actually, Donald Norman also recently is talking about that we have to take into account if we are talking about consequences of introducing technology to the social system. We have to think about the whole consequences, because even such small changes can change the whole system. I'm going to talk also about that later on. So introduction of each technology causes changes within the system. I'm going to provide to give an examples. But the question to you is what's the date? Maybe do you have something in your mind? What happened this day? Who knows what important thing happened this day? You can write on our chat space if you have some imagination, if you have any ideas what happened this day. So let's see. I don't see anything right now. Any ideas? What happened this day? January 9, 2007. Okay, I don't see any ideas. Maybe I thought that it's something easy to guess, but if not, of course, I have an answer. So this day, this thing was announced. So first iPhone was announced by Steve Jobs. So it was, of course, the beginning of new era of smartphones. Of course, it wasn't maybe first smartphone. However, this smartphone made by Apple was extremely advanced and become very, very, very popular because of lots of functions inside, lots of interesting features and good design. But simultaneously with this beginning of this era of advanced smartphone, the era of applications has started, in my opinion. So development, the application market, and also this beginning also generated loneliness, according to research. Of course, it's only, we may say it's only correlation, but lots of scientific evidence proved that it's something is off, and probably there is a explanation. So iPhone released. And also a lot of other data proved that people now, especially young generation, feel lonely and spend less time with friends, with companion, and more time with screens, touching, scrolling, clicking, and swiping. So this is a problem for us, problem of loneliness, problem of attractiveness, because such technological tools like smartphones are very attractive for young generation. But of course, you know it already. I started with this example because just to remind you. But I have, of course, also maybe something not such obvious like that. But let me also mention about kind of very well-known problem. If someone has a problem, we can often hear advice like that. Oh, there's an app for that, right? So you should try this application and you will solve this problem. So in my opinion, our thinking recently has changed a little bit, and we mostly focus on application. What kind of application can we have to solve this problem, or maybe can we build this problem? When I teach my students, and their task, their homework is to prepare come up with ideas to solve most pressing social problems. So in most cases, I see that the answer is, okay, let's build a new application. So this is the whole market of mobile applications is growing. And even, as you can see, Apple registered a trademark for this, an app for that. So this is a popular expression. But let's look at the let's say, very popular applications, very popular technological solutions, and let's think about the broaden the consequences. Let's think about the broaden perspective. So in the past, when we got lost, so then we had to ask strangers about, for example, some objects, right? How to go to the I don't know, museum. What's the direction to some objects, right? But now, of course, we have a very nice tool. We just can click and find appropriate path. For some extent, of course, it's great. It's easier. It's very easy for us. But what about such spontaneous contacts, spontaneous relations, spontaneous communication are almost disappearing because of such tool like Google Maps. So we don't have we don't have for now such opportunities, being somewhere abroad, to speak with local people, right? Maybe for you, it's something unnecessary completely, right? But we have to also add more about that. So I'm going to provide more examples because we have to sum up everything together, think in total about such processes that are affected by mobile applications. The second example is university apps for students, right? In the past, people had to talk about, I know, exams, about homeworks directly without such tools. Now, also communication with university is looked like that. So we have mobile applications, and the same problem is with libraries. Our library is disappearing because we have e-books. We have such tools to read books. But I remember that in the past, library was the place of meeting as well, place where you had the opportunity to meet strangers, people, to socialize each other. And as you can see, I have lots of examples. Here we have application for restaurants, right? To some extent, it's great to order directly from your table food and pay after eating, but again, we may lose something which is for me attractive sometimes, to speak with waiter. Another example, well known, because almost every shop, big chains are introducing such solution, right? Just to click, and such self-service cash machine become more and more popular. Even clothes. In the past, of course, we had to go to the specific clothes and search for something for us. But now everything could be adjusted, could be ordered from this shop. Thanks to such application, we can measure our body and send information to the shop, to the system, and our order will arrive. And one more example, maybe two more examples. Internet of Things, right? In the past, was absolutely crucial to maintain good relationships, good contacts with your neighbor, because sometimes if you have to, for example, go I don't know, abroad or travel. If you travel, for example, right? So you in this case, you need to find someone who could look after your cat or dog, for example, right? Or maybe control safety of your home. But now we have Internet of Things. Everything is interconnected. We may remotely control and check temperature at your home or safety issues. So great, but again, this is the question about our social bonds, about close relationships with others. And probably this is the last example in this part about Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. Popular place, but in the past, here on the left-hand side, you have a picture from the past where you see a long queue. But now such a long queue completely disappeared because of the application. We may say, okay, this is great because the long queue disappeared, but with this disappearance, social contacts disappeared as well. So I think I consider this as a problem because in such queues, we could have a wonderful opportunity to to speak with strangers, to establish maybe new relationship, new friendships. So I see also the kind of disadvantages. Now let's move to actually something similar, some similar topic, but related to this effect. Maybe you are familiar with this effect, the butterfly effect. I think that if we are talking about emerging technology, we may also use this term because, as I mentioned about smartphone, the same story is with smartwatch, right? So the definition of the butterfly effect is that some small random events can actually lead to big changes. Now the market of smartwatches are growing, and such watches become very, very popular because of functionality, because of lots of interesting features. And sometimes such smartwatch can replace our mobile phone. So that's great. And I also have one smartwatch. So I believe that there are some interesting benefits, advantages. But probably you already know that even if you don't use it, that such smartwatches are equipped with lots of interesting functions that allows us to monitor our body signals, to measure what is happening inside us, actually. So internal states we may measure by this interesting tool. As you can see here, there is a chart as for market is growing rapidly. So investors and designers are still working on new proposals of such tools. But let me analyze with you such some consequences. We may talk about positive ones and negative ones, and because I don't want to say that I don't want to present apocalyptic vision of the newest technology, but as I mentioned at the beginning, I would like to force you to think in more broadened way, to see big picture of what's happening with the newest technology. So having smartwatch, it means that we are able to, as I said, measure and check some signals from our body, right? Which means that we can, for example, change something in our habits, in our lifestyle. This is great. We may change our nutrition, diet, work, sport, or maybe sleeping habits and things like that. But also, and it's happening right now, we may give access to such data for the trainers, for doctors, for example, right? For trainers, is good because they could, for example, prepare some programs, adjust programs for us, and they could also, fitness clubs, they could analyze the data and personalize our exercises, personalize some advice for us. And the future, I believe that lots of fitness clubs will offer such something additional, let's say, benefits that working with us, or if you are our client, so then we can provide you some detailed information or personalized information about your effectiveness, about your progress, for example. The same story is with doctors, right? For now, maybe it's not such popular, but in future, probably the whole healthcare system will change. Will be more precise, will be more personalized, and we may, thanks signals from smart watches, we may, for example, we may have early signals that something bad is happening. So for also because of the progress of artificial intelligence, because of the possibility of analyzing all the data, we may integrate everything and change something in healthcare. But finally, I believe, I'm sure that such a technology, wearable technology like that, because it's only an example, the whole healthcare system will change and will be maybe more focus on data analysis, and probably our hospitals will be equipped with such labs or maybe some data processing centers. So I'm talking about medical informatic growth, expansion in this field, and also transformation of diagnosis, transformations of the diagnosis laboratories. So medical treatment will change probably. And also, as you can see here, I also put some psychological, let's say, issues about increased awareness of your body, because it's very psychological. Because self-awareness about what's happening on our body and consequences of eating something is absolutely crucial for us, and could affect also our thinking about ourselves. So this is psychological issue. Of course, for us, our body, our health is absolutely the most important in our life. Our health condition is absolutely crucial, without any doubt. But the problem is that sometimes we would be even overwhelmed by such technological solutions. And I'm sure that business is waiting for the opportunity to present and to provide some proposal for us, and to sell some products like that, Internet of Bodies. Again, don't get me wrong, I'm not against such solutions, but sometimes maybe there are too much such technologies, and who knows what happens if we will have too much on our bodies. So because the wearable technologies are, as I said, growing, the market is growing. So as you can see here, we have some examples, like, I don't know, electronic tattoo that can measure our blood pressure, for example, or level of glucose, right? Or microchip implants under our skin. Lots of, I think, interesting solutions are ahead of us. Now we see some proposal, but still this is very low level. But this, let's say, this sector is growing rapidly. And each year we'll have more and more proposals. And as I said before, such data could be integrated, and thanks this could be analyzed and personalized medicine. But it's not only about collection of data from our body. It could be collected and extracted from such things like car. So as you can see, there are some articles about car as a doctor, right? seems to be maybe something strange, something completely maybe stupid, but according to designers, according to producers, it's a great idea because we spend in our cars sometimes more than 1 hour a day. So that's why such solutions could monitor in real time, even in real time. We may analyze such data. We may also give access to this data to our doctors. And so then we can monitor some changes, so dynamics of what's happening inside us. As you can see, we have also smart toilet system to monitor and analyze, what analyses are. So this is from to some extent, of course, very nice, very promising technologies, and I see a lot of bright sides of such ideas. I don't want to talk about privacy concerns. Maybe we may regulate it, but what I'm afraid is related to cyborgization, right? We are, as I said before, at the beginning of such process, where we can analyze, thanks to artificial intelligence, some parameters of our body. In future, I'm sure that we will create, will change completely healthcare system, and the main maybe part of the system will be digital twin, right? So our virtual replica, and such replica will be fed by data from our sensors, all the wearable technologies that I mentioned, and probably the diagnosis will be generated with this by the system, right? So medicine will be more will change and will be more focused on prevention, but I also see controversial, let's say, consequences. One of them is, for example, prediction of our longevity. And so the questions, some system maybe will be able to, for example, to give us information actually when exactly we will die, we are going to die. So it seems, as I said, probably controversial and awkward, but it's ahead of us. But what I really afraid is related to cyborgization and biohacking, because we will be very sensitive to any signals. We will be more aware about also processes internal processes inside our bodies, and we will be also attacked by products. We of course we observe it already around us. There are lots of chemicals. There are lots of diets, personalized diets. So we are because we, as I mentioned, for us, our health is absolutely important, crucial, and we focus on that. So that's why I predict that such a market will be expanding. So here we have Brian Johnson and Dave Pesco, and they are very famous. They are kind of celebrities because they decide to live longer and to do everything which is what is possible to live longer, healthier. But they are rich. They have possibilities to change something in their diets and also, for example, to introduce some trainings and chemicals. So such upgrade, it's possible for rich people, but what about poorer people? What about people who are suffering from many diseases and they don't have possibilities to cope with that? So everything is everything's about the money, about the possibilities that we have, and so that's why I'm sure that such technologies will increase the level of inequality. The same story is with cyberization. Here you have results of research. Some researchers from company called Tidio conducted research, and they asked respondents about the most desired cyber enhancements. And so there are some examples, right? For example, cybernetic eyes. More than 30% of people declared that they are interested in such solutions to take pictures and record footage of what they see with using their own eyes, right? We have also, what else? Microchips that monitor health and allow fast diagnosis. What else? For example, a brain-computer interface. So it means that lots of people agree for such upgrades. And they are interested in this. So it means at the same time that it's a huge market for that, because people tend to improve their abilities. They want to live longer and healthier, but also they want to have super skills, super power. So I expect kind of fashion for that. Not to think only about restoration of some problems, some medical problems, or prosthetics or implants, if we, for example, lose our, I don't know, hand or something like that. So it's not only about supplementation, but it's about having extra skills to have advantage over others. So this is, in my opinion, quite dangerous. According to Jan Pearson, we may in future expect, but not for now, but maybe after, I don't know, 100 years or maybe more, we may expect also new species. They will appear on our planet, new species, because of the kind of convergence, human-machine convergence. So we will merge with robots, with technology. So according to him, such solutions that we have already, of course, they are on the early stage, not such advanced, but in future we will have more and more advanced technologies, and everything will lead us to the creation of new species. Of course, I don't want to go into details. This is also kind of simulation or maybe some predictions, but I think it's also quite maybe it's possible. Okay, the next my topic that I would like to explore is related to the main title of my presentation, Going Beyond. So going beyond user experience often means that a given technology may have a lot of disadvantages for society or for the humanity. Let me give you an example. Personalized, let's start with something which is maybe obvious for you and you are aware of that. So personalized internet, personalized thanks algorithm. So we have, of course, some positives, right? We may save time. We could be satisfied what is displayed on our screens. We may be satisfied with content that we see, recommendations, hints. However, of course, we know it already. There are lots of research regarding this topic about filter bubble, about social polarization, and also awareness of ignorance. So it means that we don't know what we don't know. Yes, because we are isolated. We live in such bubbles. So that's why sometimes we don't have access to some pieces of information. Here you have examples of scientific research that proved that there are lots of concerns regarding such filter bubbles and also polarizations, right? Because if we don't have opportunity to listen, to watch, to see a different point of view, so then we may be sure that our perspective is absolutely reliable, is absolutely great, and we will have tendency to completely ignore people's opinions, voices, and attitudes. Another example, virtual assistants. Of course, to some extent, we like it because we could. They are more advanced, and now they are able to recognize our needs, even our personality. Right? We may have 24/7 support. And also, if we are asked for personal assistant, home assistant, right? Instead of searching, instead of using on the internet something, we may just ask Alexa or Siri about something. This is great, but let's think about psychological consequences. So getting used to talking to someone who is constantly helpful and tuned to us, who is personalized, it means that we may think that we may completely change our style of communications to others and perceptions of others. So I'm talking about difficulty communicating with real people, and also building bonds, strong relationships with them, and also to provide some examples. You see some early signals that something is wrong with this technology, right? So as you can see, kids are being actually already shaped by such voice assistants, and may also learn bad habits, bad manners. And also, I have to maybe mention that we also conducted one experiment with our robot, and we proved that that there is a kind of transfer of style of communication. If kids are communicate every day with such assistant, could be Alexa or Siri or whatever. So there is a kind of transfer of style of communication, and they are starting to talk with their parents or teachers in similar way, in similar vein. So I'm talking about the root speaking habits. Another example of ebooks. Of course, we could say that's great. We can download everything. It's for ecological reasons. It's also very beneficial for our planet. It's also nice to have access to many books just like that by clicking. But what about disappearance of places like libraries, like bookstores, right? What about problems with access to books for elderly people? So now we see already such problems. There are lots of, in each country actually, is a very problematic kind of tendency is visible. And another example, crime mapping apps. Maybe it's not such obvious, because for us as a users, having such maps, let's imagine that you have to go to, I don't know, for business reasons, you have to go abroad and you don't know this country, right? And you see that, okay, you may download the application and you can look at the map and you may see that there are some places that, to avoid. It's better not to go there because you will be killed, for example, right? So for the safety reason, it's great. It's comfort for us. We may diminish our level of stress. But from the broader perspective, society perspective, it's also stigmatization or even discrimination of areas marked as a dangerous. So there's also related to self-fulfilling prophecy, which means that if we mark such places that are they're dangerous places, the level of investment, the level of also tourists, of course, in this case, would diminish, would decrease, because we don't want to invest in such places. So at the end of the day, such areas become poorer and more dangerous, right? Because such stigmatization. So as you see, it's based on data. It's based on, because police report to this application, and everything it's even real time accessible. But as I said before, this is a problem also. Again, one important aspect is property, right? So the prices of properties are going down. And that's why local people don't want to report to the police some criminal events, because they're afraid that because of that they will have more problems with selling their properties. So this is something that we have to also take into account. Here you have also some articles about that. Generative AI, another interesting problem, the newest one, actually. Basically, generative AI means artificial intelligence that can generate images, text, even the whole books. We are impressed. People are talking about that everywhere. There's ongoing debate about the attractiveness of such tool. We are, as I said, very, very impressed, especially if we see, I don't know, the newest invention like Sora by OpenAI. Great. So thanks to such solution, we could, for example, create our own content, save money. For some people, there is a great art tool, even art tool. They believe that it's nice to use such tool, and they don't afraid of that. However, let's think about virtual influencers created by AI. And for example, let's think about mixture, because in future we will have a mix of real and unreal, untrue, fake, completely fake virtual influencers. Generally speaking, we will have the content, real content generated by humans, and fake content generated by artificial intelligence will be fake. Will be mixed. So that's why I'm really afraid of such mess. In future internet of future will be full of messy information, full of deep fakes. For now, okay, we don't see any dangers, any risky, maybe, okay, because it's easy to recognize. This technology is not such perfect like will be in future probably. But also let's talk about consequences for youngers. I'm talking about self-esteem. Even now we observe, and there are plenty of data related to the consequences of overusing Instagram. People, especially young girls, are very concerned or very even depressed after observing wonderful ideal influencers, ideal women. So this is the problem, and also lack of acceptance for their body, their appearance. But as I said, we know this problem already, but this problem will be much higher, especially that the kind of competition with artificial influencers and also domination of artificial influencers will be more visible, and it will be much harder for a real human influencer to compete with them, right? So they will have advantage over us, and it's important that to mention that business maybe will prefer such artificial influencers. Why? Because they will be cheaper probably, and they will be the ideal, and also they will not have any ethical concerns, ethical doubts. They could promote everything you want. And the other problem is that probably the most advanced, the most let's say attractive influencer will be created by big tech companies that will have a lot of money to invest in development of such profiles. Let me provide some examples. You see here a list of, but you have to remember that it's only examples of such virtual influencers. Here you may see how many followers they have already. But here we have two examples, or maybe not very human-like influencers. It's easy to recognize that they are not real people. But the latest ones, influencers, are very hard to to recognize that it's AI generated influencer or celebrity. So the problem is that kind of it will be so hard to distinguish who is real, who is unreal. And here we have Mila Sofia, a popular influencer and model. But the second one, last month in Mexico, she appeared on the cover of Playboy. So it means that we are observing kind of higher level of acceptance of virtual, completely fake celebrities, popular person. And I think it would be the last example, I guess, about deepfake. Of course, this technology is nothing new, and probably you have heard about that a lot, and you have seen a lot of movies like that. But I just want to focus on one deepfake, let's say, kind of deepfake technology related to lip sync. Because creating deepfake creation, it's not actually very easy, right? You have to feed the algorithm, you have to spend a lot of time to do it, and find also reliable data to do it. But lip sync is technology that you don't have to need to modify the original video. So it's not about modification of image, of movement of person, anything. You don't need to modify anything, only to match your audio that you have. So it will be easier without any changes in video, but only by changing audio. You may create a deep fake, because lip sync means that the audio that you have, you could adjust to mouth, the movement of mouth. So that's why it will be more easier. It also, which is absolutely crucial in this field, it would be so hard to recognize that it's actually a fake video, fake audio. Okay. Last topic. AI is based on algorithms. Algorithms are based on data. Data is based on measurements. So something that is impossible or difficult to achieve does not power the AI. So it means that we lose what is difficult to grasp. So I'm really afraid of such approach. And this approach is visible. Everything is about data. Everything is data-driven. Everything based on data. But there are some examples. One of them is my favorite one. Is city called Songdo in South Korea. It's so close, very close to the capital of South Korea. So that's why South Korea decided to create from the scratch such a city, because Seoul as a capital is overloaded. There are lots of people live there, and they want to create kind of alternative close to this Seoul. And the idea at the beginning, was treated as something very nice, and also it was kind of experiment, because the city was equipped with lots of the newest technology. So that's why it's called smart city, the most advanced smart city, because it was built on the artificial island from scratch. And they use a lot of sensors this city is very ecological, sustainable. So everything seems to be great idea. The city of dreams, but it's called city of ghost, and also because it's maybe not abundant, but the level of the numbers of people who live there are very low, of course, in comparison to the assumptions, because at the beginning people think that, oh, it will be very attractive and popular place to live, and for developers will be a great opportunity to develop the city and build new buildings, new neighborhoods. So smart, but empty. So I'm presenting this because I would like to say that there is something beyond technological inventions. It's important to think about spirit of the city, and also to do it something to enhance social bonds and create community, real community. But because without that, people would be would feel lonely, and technology is not the solution for emptiness, for lack of people around us. So Zygmunt Bauman, for example, is talking about that. Evgeny Morozov, but also recently Donald Norman is talking about humanity and to look beyond interface. So here you see the most recent, let's say, approach of Donald Norman and this organization that I really recommend to visit, Interaction Design Foundation. So humanity-centered design, this is the idea that we have to, as I said, look beyond. We have to also take into account humanity and long-term perspectives, long-term consequences. So here you have some main assumptions. Focus on the entire ecosystem of people, all living things, and the physical environment. Solve the root issues, not just problem as presented. So think about, for example, how can we solve the reasons why this problem appeared. As I said, take a long-term solution, systems point of view. Continually test and refine the proposed design to ensure that truly meet the concerns of the people and ecosystem for whom they are intended. Of course, we know this approach from design thinking, right? But it's absolutely for now to think about the whole ecosystem of people, not to think in such a narrow way to take into account only users' experiences, and that's all. We have to think. We have to look. We have to see the big picture and design with the community, not for them. Okay, so that's all. I hope that we will continue this topic during our discussion panel. Thank you very much for your attention. And here you have some references, some books that I recommend for you. Among them, you may see Daniel Rosenberg's book, UX Magic. Daniel will be our next speaker. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much, Konrad, for your outstanding presentation. Yeah, I just checked my smartwatch, and I got so panicked that I totally missed the introduction. So Konrad highlighted a couple of very interesting points. First, balance between humanity and technology, and also this reflects also building AI or interface. We remind the movie Player One that game or interface of the game was presented so well that people wanted to be in the game, not in the reality. Also, Konrad reflected to bubbles, but we have to consider that even dating apps, which should get us off the interface, the technology, also create a bubble. When I shared with you on the chat that technology could be easily tricked, because this story from 4 years ago, a man was using only 99 smartphones, and he created like total big traffic jam in Berlin. You can watch the movie, it is very interesting. And the question also is human or humanoid. Who we will be? We can remind the movie Robocop, yeah, recently freshed by Netflix. And with design, I think sure we should focus first on human and with its context of society. So thank you very much, Konrad, very interesting presentation. For those who joined us, I switch in Polish a little bit. Możecie Państwo usłyszeć.
For those who have just joined us, you can follow this presentation in Polish. And thanks to the interpretation, you'll be able to grasp the meaning.
for supporting us. Thank you, our partners that support our initiative, and also thanks for outstanding help of our scientific committee, which help us to pick really interesting topics for the HumanTech meetings which were, and for the HumanTech meeting which will come. So that was a break for sponsors, and let me welcome our next speaker, Daniel Rosenberg, who will present us the presentation designing for an artificial intelligence. He explores the rapid development of AI machine learning, which is transforming the world into two dimension. Daniel, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Let me share.
Yes, I'm stopping. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, can someone confirm you can see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. So first, thank you very much to the sponsors for inviting me to share some of my work with you guys from quite a distance. I'm in San Jose, California, right in the middle of Silicon Valley. And I am going to talk about two case studies. So I am a designer. I am a professor of design, but before becoming a professor of design about a decade ago, I had about a 40-year career in industry. And I'm going to be actually showing some case studies and talking about, and maybe reflecting on some of the trends. I have to say, after seeing Conrad's presentation, I have a third case study that wasn't part of this presentation, but on the wearable technology and hacking of human bodies. I also have work that I have done on the design of artificial pancreases and all kinds of other technologies, slightly less invasive in the area of diabetes. So maybe I'll try and slip that in. Before I begin this talk, I had this sort of science fiction image of robots thinking. I want to tell you what I'm not going to talk about. And one of that is sentient robots and emotions. And I'm not going to talk about core AI technologies so much in terms of speech recognition and understanding. My expertise is in the field of interaction design. And while I didn't start out to be deeply involved in AI, it was kind of unavoidable. My focus is on what I can design with AI as a material, and also how it can assist or replace designers. So I'm going to talk about a product that's very smart, and some of the issues associated with designing the experience of a smart product. And then I'm going to show you a generative AI that probably will shock you. But before I jump into that, I have a sort of standing rule for all of my presentations, guest presentations and things at conferences. Voltaire said, if you wish to converse with me, you must first define your terms. And there is no area in all of technology that it's more important to define your terms than this whole world of AI. So I don't propose these are official definitions, but I want you to understand what I mean when I'm going through my case studies. The dimension of definition number one is what I would consider to be the classes of AI. And I will show you where my case studies fit in these kind of areas. Hard AI is based on machine learning. We tend to think of it as being based on neural net technology. The information is not inherently structured. And an example was image recognition determining whether a photograph is a cat or a dog. And one of the salient characteristics of hard AI is it's generally not explainable. Soft AI is also based on machine learning, but you're dealing with structured information, massive databases, often curated. There are domain-specific rules, and there are statistical models. And an example of this that you probably live with all the time is any kind of recommender function, like you would have with books and Amazon. And it is explainable, though Amazon does not bother to explain why they recommended other books when you're browsing. And then you have expert systems where you're automating some human predefined model of practice, and therefore there is historical user data, domain model rules, and potentially models of human behavior, like a persona model. An example actually is in diabetes management solutions, which assist users in terms of medication and exercise. And if I can get into my unplanned case study, doctors remotely titrating insulin in patients with this sort of internet of bodies when people are wearing devices, and doctors can change your prescription in real time. These expert systems are inherently explainable because they are built on models created by human beings, not by machine learning. My two case studies I'm going to show you fall into the soft AI bucket. But I want to caution everybody, when I use the word explainable from the context of the AI system telling the user why it's making a recommendation, that does not mean that the AI answer is correct. It only means that there is transparency to the model, right? There can always be underlying gaps in model and training sets. Definition 2, the degree of human agency associated with AI and the design. There's an extreme of replacing the human, like an autonomous driving system. We get in the car, and I don't know if you have them in Warsaw, but I see these cars spinning around my city and all over the place. Self-driving cars, you will encounter many of them in Silicon Valley anytime you get in on the road. Versus augmenting the human. Below, I have a picture of the Da Vinci surgical robot, which is a masterpiece of technology. But all of this technology is to supplement and augment the power of the doctor to do higher precision surgery. My two case studies will also be in the augment bucket, not in the replace the human bucket. And then my last dimension is kind of what I call the degree of risk involved in what you're doing, right? You can have lower risk, like an exoskeleton that can move with a human being that enhances their ability to lift heavy things, right? And that's actually, you could hurt the human being, but it's a pretty traditional human factors problem, and you should be able to get it right. The self-driving cars in the middle, and the really high risk is autonomous weapons, of which there are many. And this kind of tells you, once again, and goes back to Conrad's presentation, that every technology can be weaponized. It can be used for good or it can be used for evil. There's been no technology that I think you couldn't make that point for. My two case studies, the AI for UX is really more like an exoskeleton to help very skilled workers do a very complicated medical diagnosis. And my second, UX for AI, is kind of high risk. And it is going to be out there. I do want to also recommend a different set of definitions, and I'm hoping many of you have read Ben Schneiderman's not so recent book. I think it's almost 2 years now, Human-Centered AI, which I think, like almost everything Ben has done in the field, and very, very important person in the whole history of creating the field of HCI. And Ben has his own kind of like intelligent agents versus super tools versus teammates and versus like telebots. He also uses the intuitive surgical. And my two, if you use Ben's definitions, this is where my case studies are going to fall. And of course, a single system may use more than one class of AI. These are not mutually exclusive. So now that I've kind of defined how I think about it, and then I'm going to show you some examples. So my first half of my presentation is on UX for AI. And as I said, when you have smart technology, you see things like Amazon recommenders. Okay, you experience this every day. So I would say the class of AI is soft, the agency level is to augment human beings, and the risk level is 0. And this is something that, since I spend most of my consulting in medical and biomedical and in life sciences, the risk level tends to be very high. There's no risk to Amazon if they recommend a bad book, right? So let's go a little further. My case study is actually a product in the market that I've been involved in. This company is a long-term client of mine, and it's for diagnosing rare diseases in children, generally speaking. The input is a scan of the human body of both DNA and RNA, and you sequence the parents, the child, who's usually the medical case, referred to in the clinical sense as the proband in the data set, and sometimes siblings and other family members. The process is every variant in the human genome. So we're talking billions of DNA pairs, terabytes of data per human subject, map all of every variant found against the reference genome to various disease phenotypes and try to determine what the most likely potential diagnosis is. And then, of course, once you can figure out the diagnosis, you can also use the genetic data to identify treatment options. The user will have a PhD in genomics. These are very well-trained people, and their goal is to take all this genomic data and generate a report for the ordering physician. And just some screens, because I want to tell the stories with screens. This is, let's say, one of the main screens. Each of these is actually, each row is a case. But what you can see is running all this genomic data, right? We're first aware of some phenotypes. It could be a walking disorder. It could be pain. It could be color blindness. It could be a child born with a high palate. Any number of medical conditions, right? And in this product, again, you know, the AI class is soft. There's a lot of machine learning here, but there are models, and it's to augment the expert in genetics. And the risk level is pretty high. If you can't figure out the root cause of the disease, you have a problem. And basically, the genomic data runs through and into a machine learning system. And that machine learning system is basically aware of every scientific article published in the field of genomics, and all of the national laboratories, like in the United States, human health laboratories, the disease control laboratories, all around the world. They all share their data. It's actually collaborative. It's aware of clinical trials. It's aware, in the oncology case, of all of the chemotherapy drug labels, because many chemotherapies are known to work well with certain tumor genetic variants or not work well, and you should never use them on a patient that has a particular genomic mutation. And so again, the AI is saying these are likely candidates for the disease, the root cause, in this particular case. And in this particular thing, it's basically in this screen tracking, why is this patient deaf, and is there something we can do about it? And there now are treatments to reverse deafness that are genetic, that are coming out in the world. But what is going on? So 3 billion DNA pairs spread over 25,000 genes and 46 chromosomes, and a healthy human being, when you scan them against one of the more common reference genomes, would have at least 100,000 mutations, most of which are completely insignificant. No human being, even if they have a PhD in genomics, can keep up with the literature at the rate that the machine learning can. The literature is changing every day, right? And then you have, again, screens, of this thing. But again, it's basically saying, okay, our in silico predictions are this, and I don't want to get into all the genetics, right? This is damaging. There's high risk here. And this particular variant, and I'll explain what the variant is, just very briefly in the transcript. It's basically saying, if you remember your high school biology, DNA is like C, T, G coded, that in chromosome 5, at location 1027, there's a C where there should be a T, right? That's basically what's happening. The rest is kind of where you are in, different genes within the chromosome, et cetera. So not that you guys would read this and really understand it. What's related? What are the sources? OMIM is one database, ClinVar is another common database, et cetera. And so effectively, this tool is looking through all the data, and all these databases are changing every day. And it is trying to come up with a diagnosis. And in this case, it is explainable. It will show you a graph of why it's thinking that this is an autosomal recessive and it's related to this. And you can actually click on an article. If the analyst is not familiar with the article, they can go right to it. Many times they would be familiar if it's a kind of mainstream diagnosis. And of course, there are related cases, how these cases have, in what similar cases. So it knows every historical case, and many of the world's leading scientific institutions in this area share their cases. They're anonymized, but you can see how somebody at another institution decided to call a particular kind of set of mutations, right? And it's, again, and it not only varies, for individuals, your ethnic background makes a difference, particularly in oncology. Mutations and, say, breast cancer for Caucasian women that are pathogenic would occur in East Asian women all the time, and you wouldn't believe that it was actually relevant to treatment. So you have to basically understand your population genomics as well. And the end result is creating this clinical report. So hopefully you have a rough idea. And this is basically making recommendations. The genomicist curates the report. They can decide the AI said there's a correlation in some particular place. This is a messy one, by the way. So this is a splice variation at this location, chromosome 17, at this location in the DNA strand, where there's supposed to be one G, there's a whole bunch of other stuff that shouldn't be there. So now the DNA is not just a substitution, it's an add of a whole string. This actually you'd see more in a cancer. But anyhow, so give you an idea of how to read this. Okay, but what's the most important characteristic? So you have this incredible technology. It's in the market. It's been in the market for a while. We continue to evolve it. And I do this rhetorically. If anybody would like to come off mute in the audience, give me an answer. What do you think the most important characteristic that this UX must achieve in order to be used in the field? Anybody want to throw it out? I can't see the chat, so if you type in the chat, maybe one of the moderators can say what was typed in the chat.
But the problem is that people from audience cannot speak, only can write. So
Okay.
The chat box.
Okay, well, let me go on then, okay? You have to gain the user's trust, right? These are highly intelligent.
So there is a level false positive results. There is if you thought about that. There is
Yes.
some bad.
There could be false positives. And that's why effectively the explainable is a hard requirement, right? You cannot gain. So if this was a black box, and I picked these two screens intelligently, if I give you this, the AI basically says, I think the reason for deafness is this splice variant in this location, okay? Which might actually be reversible with some treatments. And I didn't give the screen, right? And if you click on this, the analyst is going to say, okay, explain the logic to me that you're making this recommendation. And you did not have this graph, and it was just a black box. Would you trust the system? And I think the answer is no, right? It's just not, right? If you can't gain the user's trust for these kinds of super smart products, high risk diagnosis, we're talking about how you're going to treat a child for the rest of their life, potentially, maybe to reverse a birth disorder. These systems have to be right. It's not like Amazon recommending a book and you don't like the book. So anyway, I can pause. And if anybody could type or wants to ask a question, maybe since we have the panel, I think it'll be better to save that to the end. Is that okay? All right, I'm going to assume so. So now I'm going to go on to my next example. This is the alternate reality. So we just looked at, all right, I'm a UX designer and I'm designing products that are super smart. And absolutely, you'd say there's some AI technology in the box. But now I'm a designer and I want AI to do my work so I don't have to. These screens are from a system, from a company. It's changed its name, but at the time was called Clean Software. These are a couple of years old. This is a vehicle inventory system, and these screens were 100% generated by AI and coded by AI into a working, deployed system, and it can be deployed in almost any cloud provider. So you could use AWS or IBM Cloud, whatever, it doesn't really matter, right? The human only described the problem, right? And this is what the AI basically generated in a matter of minutes. So if you're not familiar, this is very different than many generative AIs. And how does this work? It works basically, well, let me go back to the high level. Okay, so coming back to my definitions, the AI class, it's soft AI. There are underlying models that I will speak about. The agency level is, it's really meant to augment designers and engineers. It's not quite ready to replace them. The risk level is moderate. It depends more on the domain that you're working in. But effectively, from the original company's website, you have some vision for a product, and you explain your concept. There's a UX kind of production pipeline, a theming, which is basically colors and fonts, and a renderer, and then code export on different APIs. And even the design time of this technology uses the technology. It's kind of your normal silicon they'll eat your own dog food when you're producing something and try and use it yourself. So what does the pipeline really look like? There's a lot of different technologies. It's not just one AI thing, but there's a lot of graph models of knowledge that lead through to the actual coding and transformation. Okay, and these are the parts where these graphs, and I will speak a little bit about these without going into too much detail. But how do you accomplish this idea of, and I will show you a little of the design time, how do you accomplish this idea of, I'm just going to tell the AI what the application has to do, and then the AI is going to produce and generate code. So the logic of it is that requirements can be mapped to this idea of semantics. And I'll explain what I mean by semantics in a little bit, but interface semantics. And then obviously decomposed into specific workflows for specific personas. And that if, assuming you can understand the relationship between a particular requirement, let's say the automobile inventory, the fleet management, I need to be able to enter a new vehicle, create, update, and delete a vehicle. I need to have routing plans. I need to have check-in and check-out and maintenance schedules. All that, they're all the requirements for that fleet management case, right? You take the semantics, the workflows, and the personas, and you have to map them to the data and to the business logic. And then, of course, select visualization patterns. And then once you select the visualization patterns that your UX could use, then you map that into your UI library. And these are abstract models. These are not pictures of real models. And then, of course, you deal with theming and color and fonts, and then you generate all your code to the cloud. Okay, so I'm going to try and explain this part. I actually don't know how this part works as well as I should, but this is the part that I was more involved in. So when we talk about semantic interaction design, it's a whole area, and I'm going to give you like a 90-second tutorial. But it starts in 1979 with Phyllis Reisner at IBM Watson Labs, and the notion of something called the task-action grammar, which is how do you model concepts in language and how do you model complexity. It builds on work by many famous people, including Don Norman, who's been referred to, his theory of stages of action, designed by levels from James Foley, some work by Ben Schneiderman, and going back to 1995, this concept of object-oriented GUI by David Collins. It was first kind of put together in a unified published form in a book called Conceptual Models by Jeff Johnson and Austin Henderson. This book is being reissued. A new edition is either out like this month or is coming next month. For your reference, Jeff Johnson and Austin Henderson, if you're not familiar with those names, were both members of the Xerox PARC team that invented the graphical user interface more than 3 decades ago. Building on all of this is the UX Magic book that I wrote, which is kind of a complete system for semantics in UX design that has this kind of 4 levels of, okay, the semantic grammar, how you map visualization to it, and how you map flow to it. And the core is this notion of you can describe everything in objects and actions in a graphical user interface. So you're all used to using finding actions in menus, clicking on objects, and all objects have attributes. So that, in effect, if you took a user story, a unit of work, right, and this is just for like a pet adoption, right, you could take any user story and very quickly find the objects. An object is a noun, a verb is an action, and any adjective semantically is an attribute. So as a parent, person, object, oops, I want to find action, a friendly attribute, dog, dog-eyed, pet object, that will help me teach my children person, object, again, responsibility, right? As an elderly widow, person, object, I want to adopt action, a dog, animal, object for my protection attribute, right? So you can effectively take the user stories, and then having a set of user stories, you can take any screen and create it or analyze it. I'm doing this retrospectively and saying what's going on in this Facebook page, because they're just objects and actions, and there are attributes, which generally are the data. And this is how semantic interaction design works, both for bottom-up creation of new interfaces or top-down as a heuristic evaluation technique. And you look at all your objects and actions, and they form the grammar. And this is a bad example from an early word processor before GUI, where you could say, okay, the objects in a word processor are characters, words, and paragraphs. And if I am sloppy in the design of my actions, I get redundancy, and I have a lot of exceptions. And if I now go and Larry Tesler invented at Xerox PARC in the early days of the graphical interface this notion of a standardized cut, copy, and paste action. And you kind of compress the grammar to be as dense as possible. You will end up with a couple of things. You will end up, by doing this methodology, with the lowest cognitive load, because if the grammar is dense, the cognitive load basically grows approximately as the number of actions plus the number of objects. And when it gets really sparse and there's duplication and inconsistencies, it starts to grow exponentially. So the first thing that the AI has to do is make this transition from the requirements in the form of user stories, which are going to yield a lot of candidates for objects and actions, to find the minimum set that can express all the functionality. AI can do this. I mean, I have to teach this to my grad students every year, and it's a struggle, but actually AI seems to do this pretty well. So first, figuring out what the simplest conceptual model would be, and then going and saying, okay, now that we have figured out kind of the grammar, and this is, again, very short summarization, then look at the flow. And so in the authoring environment in the system, you, the user, define what kind of workflows, and this one is for a bookstore, right? You'd have a catalog of workflows that you define the goals for. And again, within a workflow, this is part of the design time, you would say, who's the end user? And you begin to see the format of the user stories, right? As an end user, I want to do some kind of thing. And here they use the term verb. So the founder and I never agreed on the language in some of these screens. And what's the goal, right? And then you can select different types of experiences from kind of the catalog of design patterns and say what ones you might want to do, though the AI could do its own. There's a catalog in the design time of what the data actually is. So this is not a kind of UX of the schema. This diagram is real. It's the data model of that can be deduced from the underlying APIs to the back end. And here they chose to call it things instead of objects, which also annoys me, but that's okay. And it generates code. And that code gets pushed to the cloud. And then you launch your prototype. And boom, here is your bookstore inventory screen. And what's interesting about the AI is there was no requirement to add a book, actually, in the original requirement. However, the AI decided it better create a way to create a new record in the database. So it wasn't requested, but it was just determined that in this class of application, you would have to support create, update, and delete flows. And then you can move to the visualization layer at visualization has its own model, and say, okay, well now, particularly for data visualization, if you want to say what insights you want to communicate, then what would be the best pattern? But here, as a user, you have to say, well, I want to commute the raw data, or I want it aggregated, et cetera, et cetera. And you can get kind of a preview in these screens. And basically, by telling the system, I guess you could kind of think of this as like writing a prompt in ChatGPT, but it's a little bit more constrained, perhaps. What your desired insight is, knowing what your data is and who your persona is, the AI said, okay, I think for the dashboard in this application, it would be kind of useful to have a bubble diagram, and this is what it would look like. And this is not a mock, this is sitting on the raw data. And then you can see in the generated system that it placed that particular visualization over here, et cetera, et cetera. Again, this is a sample application that it generated. And so it can do multiple languages, it can do light and dark schemes. It actually generates code that is fully accessible up to the latest WCAG standards, et cetera. Okay? And yeah. So now you kind of have the idea of, all right, I can just go to this and I can explain what the problem is. And maybe that will take me an hour or two. And in minutes, I can have a working prototype, which I can try. I can go back and tell the system, I want a little bit more of this. I think this other pattern might be better here. Show me what that would look like. But it leads to this whole mega trend in technology of low-code, no-code solutions. And then, of course, one of the questions that immediately comes up is, well, all right, if this works as well as you're showing it, where are all the UI designers going to go? Well, they won't become taxi drivers because we'll have automated cars, okay? And where will the engineers go, right? I mean, at what point are we really displacing the labor force? And so now that I've given you a very fast tour of what you can do, and what I'm showing you, these screens are about 2 years old. The company's pivoted a bit and changed its name. And maybe since we have the panel section, if people are interested, I can tell you where it is right now, what the scope is. But again, what's the problem with this kind of solution? Okay, and I guess since we can't have everybody just pipe up on their microphones because they're muted by default, it's basically, the problem is garbage in, garbage out, right? If you don't understand the requirements and don't deliver a relatively comprehensive requirement set as the input, you're going to get a UI that could look very pretty and the code could run very fast, but it won't actually solve any particular problem. And it will not be successful. Now, of course, the fact that you can generate prototypes so quickly allows you to do design-driven user research and show this to real subjects and real potential users and get their feedback very quickly. So now, all of a sudden, at a minimum, your iteration cycles go from months to days in making adjustments. And then my rhetorical question for my students in particular is, okay, given we have this garbage in, garbage out, what I would consider to be a mutable law of physics, will AI ever be able to solve for the garbage in, garbage out weakness? Would something like the large learning models like the ChatGPT be able to look at the requirements or generate a set of requirements that were even better than an expert user? Because to really be full truth and disclosure here, right? The user would need to be a domain expert. They wouldn't need to be a UX designer per se, but they wouldn't be more of like a product manager or a business analyst. But you do have to understand the domain, particularly as you move into technical domains. And then, of course, you know, as academics, we always want to look at, okay, and come back to, you know, Conrad's point about these disruptions have effects on society. So this kind of technology could change the labor market. And in both of these trends, all of them can change a lot of things, right? In the UX for AI, it changes what we design, and AI for UX, it changes how we actually generate the designs, right? And we haven't even gotten anywhere near robotics, right? This is just kind of a fairly narrow niche. And then I guess we'll come back to the panel and any general questions. But I think since I have a few more minutes, I just want to refer back to what Conrad was talking about in one of his slides. So I kind of hacked my own presentation for a minute. By the way, you can get the book on Amazon, but it was the publisher's the Interaction Design Foundation, which I hope many of you are familiar with, which is a nonprofit in Denmark, and is a very nice source of curated material in UX, as opposed to a lot of the stuff that's on the internet that's floating around that's just, in my opinion, patently wrong. But let me jump to one more quick case study. This is one I have been working on for a decade, and to be fully transparent, I am an investor and on a technical advisory board in this particular company. But Conrad talked about, you know, the wearable technology, and there's a trend, a meta trend here, which we often refer to in Silicon Valley as the quantified self. We put all these sensors on human beings, and this is a product, third case, and I'm going to improvise a little here. It's for diabetics. It came out originally for type 2, but it's now approved by the FDA and CE mark for type 1 diabetics. And it is basically a solution that is the first instance of digital medicine. And this has been in the market now for probably almost a decade in different forms. The company's name is WellDoc, and the current product actually just goes by the company name. But this is a solution prescribed initially by physicians and reimbursed by insurance companies, software only, and in clinical trials, it was shown for high-risk type 2 diabetics to reduce their A1C, so that's your primary medical, you know, blood glucose level, by 2 points, where the leading pharmaceutical for type 2 diabetes, metformin, actually reduces blood glucose level in that patient population by 1.8. So we have a digital solution, an app, so to speak, and yes, there's an app for everything, helping diabetics with diet, exercise, medication, mindfulness. It's also multi-diagnosis in the sense it deals with heart disease, asthma, and many other things. Nobody wants an app for every diagnosis. It uses a lot of applied game theory to motivate people and captology principles. And there's an over-the-counter version, and there's the, if you're on insulin version, because many type 2 diabetics, most don't need insulin. And this is just one screen from the doctor's side of the solution, where a doctor, and these are for insulin patients only, can remotely titrate insulin, particularly when you're onboarding a patient to insulin and you're trying to figure out what the right, essentially, prescription and balance is. So the doctor can see the patient's data. and they can actually make adjustments. The most extreme case is the artificial pancreas, which I noticed Conrad had in one of his bullet points. And I've worked on another product where, in fact, you do have an insulin pump, and you do have a continuous blood glucose meter. And actually, a lot of type 2 diabetics are wearing these continuous meters. They're now very affordable. So the previous solution that I showed you is getting a data every 5 minutes and being able to tell the patient what to do. If I want to come back to here, if you are using the version of the WellDoc product with insulin, it does require a doctor's prescription. The over-the-counter version will not support insulin dosing. But again, this is fairly high risk, because if you're doing automatic insulin dosing, this is a different product, but actually it's a spin-off of the first company. You can kill the patient, right? You can really do some bad things if you get the UX wrong or you get any of the algorithms wrong. So again, just, yeah, this is my world, kind of products that I've mostly been working on. Occasionally I work in some other areas. And so I think we can move to the panel, and hopefully we can get a feed of questions about both presentations, and we can talk about future trends. But I think, as Alan Kay said, the future's here. It's not evenly distributed, that's all. So I don't know for the audience here if what I showed you with the generative AI, writing and coding entire user experiences, is actually the first time you're seeing this or you're familiar with this. But nothing that I've shown you today is breaking news. These are things that have been in the market, have customers and users. And actually, most of my work in the genomics area, actually, it looks kind of similar, but it's for oncology, for cancer treatment, where you're actually using a similar user interface to figure out the best treatment, but you do know the diagnosis. In rare disease, you're trying to figure out the diagnosis, but it's the same technology. So I'm going to stop talking and toss it back to the moderator, Peter.
Yes, thank you very much. Wow, really outstanding speech. And I have to tell you that I'm quite similar with that, because I'm also a solution architect. So I'm using that stuff, and I am impressed with your speech. And also I did some notes, I think, that should stay with us. And I choose one thing that, AI, robots, soldiers. I think consider that Albert Einstein could predict that, and maybe that's why he was a pacifist, yeah? And the other remark is AI-supported medicine, but as you told, has to be explainable. And that fantastic story about designing, that's actually I did. I prepared code of UML diagram with ChatGPT. When I did it with this plant UML, when I did it in Marmay, in Draw.io, so we can really do it right now. And also you can design app with no code, like you told, that is great also. And you can design also a nice user interface. But we have two things to consider. First is, of course, it will go popular, because it's training cost of machines of LLMs are getting cheaper and cheaper. But we have to consider that LLMs train on the data that the outcome from LLMs are getting mad. So there is a place for human in system, because human has to give creativity. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful presentation. And now I will pass to the panel. David. David is a designer. He asked some guests. He will introduce them. David, thank you. Here you are. The floor is yours, of course.
Maybe before we start the panel, because I see some questions to Daniel, right? So maybe before we start, maybe
sure.
Let's analyze this question, and you have something to answer. So question number one is, I'm not sure what is exactly the difference between two approaches, UX for AI and AI for UX. Of course, maybe you can elaborate it very quickly and sum up your idea, maybe some in few words, right?
Sure. The difference between these two domains and disciplines is when the first UI for UX for AI is my first case study, where we as designers have to design a UI where AI is the media, AI is the engine, right? And we have to make it explainable and trustworthy. And to a large degree, we take responsibility that the system is accurate, okay? And in that class of product, particularly when it's medical, you have two kinds of certification. You have validation testing and you have verification testing, okay? Verification testing is testing that the code does what you think it does, but validation testing is that you got the medically correct answer, right? Not the code could work perfectly, but give an erroneous answer. But it's just, in the first example, we did not use AI to generate any of the screens. The screens were generated by human beings the old-fashioned way. The second example, the AI replaced the UX designer and it replaced the software engineer. So it was purely generative. And it would be a very long time from now, in my opinion, before the generative AI would be capable of doing something as sophisticated as that genomics medical product that I showed you, right? The use cases are too complicated, too domain specific, as opposed to your standard IT dashboard kind of thing, which is very cookie cutter. But that's the difference, right? Humans designed the first system and AI designed the second system.
And I think we have one comment from Agata, and she disagree with you. She disagree with the assumption that there won't be emotional robots in the future. And emotional expression is such a huge part of the human communication that we won't be able to avoid this area for long. That doesn't mean that the robots will feel, but they will have emotional-like expression to communicate more effectively with humans. What do you think about it?
I actually agree with her. And I think it was a misinterpretation of my slide. I only put the X through the sentient robot to say I'm not going to talk about that today. Not that I don't think it's going to happen. I just try to be, because it's such a broad topic, I'm just saying, I want to narrow down what I'm talking about today. At our university, we have, human factors engineering program, graduate level only. It's one of the oldest in the United States. It's like 3 decades old. We have robots all over the place. We have faculty who specialize in human robotic interaction. And I'm sure they would agree with you too. I am not an expert in human robotic interactions, so I don't comment on that topic other than to say that I am not an expert.
Yeah, but I can see maybe that is idea for next HumanTech meeting. There's a suggestion.
Yeah,
What I did with AI recently, I was trying to describe image of the author, putting email to the ChatGPT and some other stuff. I don't use only ChatGPT. And I asked him to draw his psychological portrait. So it works. It works really nice. Okay. Any other questions? Any other questions? So let's get to panel, please.
Yes, so hello, I'm David. I'm very pleased to be here with you. A quick presentation of me. I'm a designer. I'm teaching on the design faculty at SWPS University, and I'm also the head of the open of the AA lab. And I'm actually writing a PhD on design, and I definitely will look into your book, Daniel. Thank you for your presentation. It was super interesting. But first, before we start the panel, let me just introduce our two other panelists. So there is with us Anna Nowacka, who is the product owner of Coda AI, and she's fascinated by AI and its impact on application development and end users. She gained her experience in digital agency before immersing herself in the world of SaaS. She has collaborated with companies such as Grupa Unity, LiveChat, and Woodpeckers. She began as a UX designer, acquiring valuable knowledge in user experience design. Later, she shifted her focus to integration and APIs, which remain her passion to this day. Currently, she combined her design experience with analytical skills and leads projects from start to finish, ensuring they are resilient to the what-if question. And there is also Agnieszka Rice with us, who is a photographer, a visual artist, and a co-founder of the Sputnik Photo Collective. She studied art history at Jagiellonian University and completed doctoral study at the University of the Arts in Poznań. She is interested in post-Soviet heritage of Central and Eastern Europe and explores topics related to its myths, history, and reinterpretation. Agnieszka is the author of several photography books. She is also a lecturer at SWPS University. She lives and works in Warsaw. And she also is the co-author of an exhibition, and we did it together around archives, war, photographies that we enlarge with generative tools. And so that was also one of the pretexts, the why I asked her to join us today. So I will propose that I have some question to you, and I will direct them to one of you, and then after the response, the other panelists will be invited to also give their opinion or their response if they want to. And then if the public want to share some thought or questions, I will try to follow the chat to see if someone wants to jump in, maybe in the last part. So I will start with Konrad. Thank you for your presentation, and it was very connected with different aspects of what I'm work on very often when I'm teaching things about AI and art and technology and connected to human body and other part of the human being. And so I wanted to ask you as your experience as someone who really work with a very different different people from different area, because you work with technologists, you work with humanists, you also work with designers, and so I have just this feeling that we are still in bubbles, right? That it's sometimes hard to talk between disciplines, right? So my question to you is, how can interdisciplinary collaboration be fostered effectively among these different disciplines, among designers, technologists, and social scientists?
Oh, $1 million question. And let me wait because I need to battery because battery is low. So, but regarding the answer, I believe that it's possible because we have very often similar goals, right? If we have similar goals, we have to find maybe common sense, common language, and understand that working together in the interdisciplinary teams, it's profitable for both sides, right? For engineers, for people with humanistic orientations. I have to say that I came across such approach when I was a few years ago at in a digital factory at Aalto University. I was surprised that I met there a lot of people with different background. Engineers, IT specialists, and anthropologists, for example, they are working together, and I saw that they, because of such differences, because of different background, different let's say point of views, they work very effectively, and also they were interested in their different perspective, right? So we have to change our mindset, that it's not means that if someone disagree with you, that it's for you kind of a signal that something is wrong with your perspective, and you have, I don't know, some problems with understanding, blah blah. I think it's this is important to work on our mindset, right? Such perspective can enrich our final results. Of course, sometimes it's hard because of the potential conflicts, because of the again, the same problem in this interdisciplinary approach. So the same, once again, it leads us to the positive or negative consequences, right? Sometimes we may have more conflict, but sometimes we may see that because of such various perspectives, our final result is better. So this is, of course, related with this design thinking approach, right? The roots in this methodology is like that, to assume such perspective that it's absolutely crucial and it's beneficial for us. But for me, and also for my friends who work with engineers, for example. At the beginning, the beginnings are sometimes very problematic, right? But at the end of the day, we see that it's sometimes very interesting, very fun, very attractive, and also it's such crossing the boundaries. Such establish new contacts is for me profitable because I have opportunity to do it something different, right? Not to teach the same things the same way every time. So I'm talking about such psychological. I'm talking about psychological issues, right, related to this. But I know that lots of scientists are afraid of that. They work in their teams, and they have, because of that, narrow perspective, right? But to sum up, what I would like to say, it requires different mindset, and maybe deans of the departments or rectors, chancellors should promote such contacts, right? In our university, we promote such approach, right? It's something valuable, right? To do it with designers, something, right? Psychologists with designers, with people from different background. However, in many universities, it's not such popular, and it's not something seen as something profitable.
Thank you, Conrad. So, what about the others? Any thoughts about how to make this collaboration effective in a proactive way? Maybe something from your experience?
Well, if I can say,
Yes.
because I'm a person who started as a UX designer and then I shifted to more technical skills. Of course, I represent a business here, so my perspective might be a little bit different than just university approach. However, I feel that working in team that consists of different people with different experience and developers, designers, maybe even some product owners or people related to science. It is beneficial not only for the project, but also for the people themselves. And this is the actually change of the mindset that Conrad said, because I felt that working with people with other experiences, with other knowledge, helped me grow and actually overcome the bubble that was mentioned in Conrad's presentation as well. So if I have a lot of people gathered here, I can just say that I strongly encourage you to go out of your comfort zone. I know it sounds cliche, but still, it could be very beneficial for you and for the project you are working on, because it will give you a much bigger perspective than just your own.
Thank you. Agnieszka, Daniel? Nothing to say. Okay, that's also right. Okay, great. Daniel, do you want to add something, or should we move?
Only I can add that I agree.
Okay,
But
great.
and the reality is, there's nothing that I have designed in my entire career that wasn't some kind of collaborative experience, right? I even, like the genomics example that I gave you, I barely passed high school biology. I need genomicists, I need the doctors, I need all these people to be working on the project. And often the role for the designer is more of a facilitator to figure out what we need to build, and then worry about the actual building part and the actual designing part. So that's a very large part of my work. But you can't do this by yourself. You would never have the expertise to do any of these sophisticated things.
Maybe I would like to add that because the problems that we face today are very complex, right? And we need expertise, we need knowledge. So that's why I think, because of the complexity of the problems, we need complex teams, right? Interdisciplinary teams to understand and see this problem from various perspectives. And also, yes, absolutely, in my opinion, important to understand that we can learn from each other. For example, even such meetings like we have here, HumanTech Meetings. I like this series because for me, it's a perfect occasion to find out more also about something more technical. And then I will be able to see things from broader perspective. So I think this is everything is about our mindset, our attitudes, right? Not to protect too much our point of view, but to be open for new ideas. But it's of course it requires probably change lots of changes also in the educational system, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. Thank you for that, Konrad. Thank you also for your thought, Daniel. I can relate with that, and especially with this role of being a facilitator. But but it's required to talk in different languages. Yeah, I mean, even as you said, if you don't have a huge knowledge about biology, you have to know something, and then you have to know something about programming, even if you don't program yourself, and so on and so on. And that lead me to my second question. And it's actually very connected to what Konrad just said. What do we have to learn more, right? And so, what are the new competence, both technical and humanistic, that designers need to acquire in this context of this new revolution? And that question I wanted to direct to Agnieszka, because we are a teacher on the design department. And so what are your thoughts, Agnieszka, about what our students should learn, what new competence? Are you with us? Does Agnieszka disappear?
I'm here.
Oh, you are here. Okay, great.
And I hope you can hear me
Yes.
right now. Okay. So yes, we both have this nice jobs where we teach students to become designers. And when I teach them, when I meet my students, they are mostly young people, like 20, 19, 22 years old. So I often ask myself this question: do they need to learn more or in a different way than I used to learn when I was a student? And honestly, I don't have an answer to this question. Of course, there are things that are similar and things that are different. But when I think about them in the context of AI and AI tools, I think that the thing that they really the competencies they should acquire are maybe even not technological. Well, I mean, this is obvious. This is obvious that they should know something about technology. They should have some data literacy. They should know some programming maybe. But I think that the most important competencies are are human-oriented approaches, and I think that we said already a lot about it during this afternoon. for me, it's like summing this up. And I think that this, what you, Konrad, said, that collaboration is important. This is really something which seems to me very important, and I can't imagine a future designer, a designer of 21st century who cannot work in a team. So all this collaboration and interdisciplinary skills, I think this is like core of being a designer, and also which goes everything which goes together with these skills. This is emotional intelligence, also critical thinking, being able to think critically about our own ideas and also other people's ideas, and also, of course, responding to responding to human needs and understanding human emotions. So probably these competencies are not very different from competencies of designers of today, but I think that they should be deepened, like this necessity of working in a team and understanding of the needs and fears of other people.
Thanks. Thank you for your insight. What about the other panelists? Any thoughts about the what should we give me some advices for me? What should I teach my students next year, for instance?
Well, I have one suggestion, and we're struggling with this in my own program, but it's basically technology ethics.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
Right. And I don't think a course in technology ethics is the answer. I think it's got to be ubiquitous in the curriculum, because the consequences and risk are rising very much in so many domains that we work in as designers. And obviously, risk is high in the medical product area. Getting the wrong answer is not okay. I've certainly worked on products that can kill a patient. But because of what Konrad was talking about, the social implications and side effects, almost unpredictable side effects, we need to be a lot more careful. And we don't really have a good framework for doing it or teaching it.
Exactly. Yeah, I also had this feeling that there is a new area of knowledge here to deploy, right? Konrad, Anna, any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree, of course, with Daniel and Aga. And personally, I will add one skill that is important from my perspective, and it's like one step back. Something similar to what Aga said. I will add that understanding of the project, of the or maybe of an issue that the project has to solve is very crucial, because in my work I work with designers who actually had this approach. Okay, I have this business requirement, so I will design my the screens just as it is said in the requirements, without any deeper analysis. And what I think that is very important is to ask ourselves the what if questions, ask ourselves or maybe our teammates how this part of the system will actually work, because without that, we won't be able to provide a solution that is actually beneficial for the user. And of course, we need to have in the back of our head the information that there is still a person on the other side of the screen who has its own issues, its own environment, and we need to think outside of our own perspective. Just try to be deeply in the user's shoes. That's what I would add.
Yeah,
Let me
go on,
add
Konrad.
a few words. I think we should teach future designers how to create products that respect user privacy, ensure inclusivity, and avoid all the biases that we know. It's of course sometimes so hard to do it, especially that I think that young people very often focus on the final product, user needs. That's all. But such aspects that I mentioned are less important, right? So they then put such aspects into the center. For them, it's something additional, right? We don't have to at the beginning think about that. We may analyze it later on. So I see such approach. So really afraid of that. The problem, I think, is that there are lots of startups, lots of investors around, and also there's a huge motivation to be a millionaire, to create something like, I don't know, next Uber, I don't know, next Facebook or such applications. And that's why such ambitions, such tendency to build such products, I think may cause the problem of not seeing such social aspects that I mentioned. So this is the, I think, challenge, and maybe this is my practical advice. Maybe the designers teaching design should be we should start always with such ethical or related with privacy issues, and then allow them to work on their project. This is maybe, I'm not sure, but I don't have anything other such solutions maybe would be effective. Who knows?
Yeah, thank you. I can relate with that, and I think as a design teacher, I try to do that actually, and I'm often in my introduction I'm giving this example of this blanket that was designed to hug babies that was premature, in this, I don't know how do you call it, but this glass thing where they have to live for a couple of months because they were premature and nobody can touch them. So they designed this blanket that give the feeling of being hugged, and it's appeared that it give great results, and it's very it helps them mature and grow their body in a good way. But then I also saw a pajama that also can hug, but not a premature baby, but just a child from distance. And so there is this temptation from, I will say, capitalism to scale your product, right? So you design something that is for a specific target group. And in my example, it was like this baby premature, and then your product is well fitted and ethical, and then there is this this temptation, I will say, that you can sell it to everybody. And then there is I saw the ad, right, of this pajama. There is the mom that cannot come home because she's at work and she's working at late, and so she just have a pilot that just make the pyjama growing, or I'm not sure about what is the exact mechanism, but give the feeling of being hugged by for the kids, and that is somehow wrong. I mean, I just have this feeling that it's just it just give you something that is not a real experience, right? So there is this temptation, but there is also this responsibility, and how to make our product more responsible, and maybe elevate the burden or distribute this responsibility through the team. This is a question that I will maybe ask Anna.
Actually, it's a very interesting question and interesting aspect of the design. Of course, from my perspective, the most important part is a communication between the team, because sharing the knowledge is important, of course. However, there must be a person, probably a leader of the team, that has this approach to share the ethical insights, or encouraging people to work with scientists, or for broadening their knowledge about the ethics of design. There should be some person that is, facilitating it, and it is a leader in that field. That will be my perspective, because having a right person as a leader can bring the whole team to a different level of knowledge, different level of collaboration, and it will, of course, be beneficial to the whole company or whole project. Yeah, that's what I would say.
Sorry, someone just mute me. Thank you, Anya, for your insights. I will just pass the voice to the microphone to the other panelists. Any thoughts? So, should the designer have the responsibility, or should it will be somehow distributed through different people in the process?
So if I may add something.
Yeah, sure.
I think it should be distributed among the whole team. So not only the designer should be responsible for providing such design, because it's not only about the design when we are talking about the product. There is some technology behind it, and there are people that are actually responsible for doing this technology, coding it, maintaining the database, and they should have this responsibility too, because they are, of course, they are responsible, but for different parts of the system. We can design something that people see and give a lot of valid information. However, if the system is, for example, not safe, it will be responsible for of the developers, of the architects. I hope I explained it quite well.
Thank you. Yes, I understand everything. So thank you, Anya. I saw, Konrad, that you just unmute you and you were just ready to jump and answer to the question.
No, I just mute. I just mute you because I hear some noises from your background. So this is the explanation why I mute you. But regarding, as for your question, so I think the responsibility, every person in the team should feel this responsibility. Designers also are responsible, because very often I think that they don't care about they don't think about long-term consequences of using their services or their product. So I believe that from the very beginning, we have to pay attention to such ethical aspects and, teach about that and also persuade the designers to take this responsibility for the consequences of their of using their products or services. And also, I think we need maybe more ethical standards, ethical regulations in this field, right? Because because now I think this kind of job, designer, is something very hard to define, actually, right? And of course, there are some school of designs, but without any diploma, you can be name yourself that I'm designer, right? So maybe this job should be more regulated. I don't know, and it should be introduce more ethical standards to this field. This is my thoughts regarding this problem. So again, ethical issues, responsibility, because we need not only simple products, but we have to know also more about the consequences of using product, because as I mentioned at my presentation, I think designing good product is not enough. In ideal world, designers should also look at data, and analyze scientific data, right? For now, maybe it's even impossible, but who knows? In future, maybe we will manage to change curriculum, maybe, or as I said, introduce kind of that it's mandatory, right, to bring data, to present that what you do wouldn't be harmful for the whole society, and you take into account all the risk, all the possible risk. For example, as I remember that Daniel Rosenberg mentioned about this application for people with diabetics, right? A very interesting, I think, tool. And I remember on his slide, he had information that it was FDA approved, right? This application was it was approved by FDA. So I think that maybe we should create establish kind of commission, right? And similar to FDA, and this commission would approve such emerging technologies, such products. But of course, somebody can say that, oh, but for example, in China we don't have any regulations, so they will be ahead of us. They will create something without such permissions. So it's a stupid idea. But I believe that we don't have to. It's better not to focus on what Chinese people are doing, or other countries, and focus on our reality more, and that's all. So maybe it would be, because I'm not going to say that such a committee should control or give, I don't know, permission. It would be very hard and long-term process, but maybe recommendation, right? Looking at this process in positive way, kind of recommendation or advice, maybe could provide advice that if you want to introduce this product into a market, you have to take into account this or this. So I believe it's possible, right? But it requires probably maybe some regulations, or maybe changing the mindset. I don't know.
I would
Yeah.
actually unpack this into two different topics. Topic number one is regulation. Topic number two is certification of designers. And both have a lot of people with very polarized opinions on this topic, right? Let me address the first one. When you work in a regulated industry, right, then the industry has its rules. And yes, the diabetes product that I showed you was the first software solution, digital solution that the FDA approved over about a decade ago. Now there are more. However, that required clinical trials. And that digital solution is legally a pharmaceutical in the United States. It has a prescription drug code, not a FDA medical device code, right? And so you're subject to all kinds of interesting rules when you have basically a digital solution that is legally a pharmaceutical, and many benefits for doing that as well. There are other industries that are regulated, obviously banking, finance, et cetera, et cetera. But in the world of AI, when AI intersects in those regulated industries, they have the responsibility to adjust the regulations accordingly. The general case of AI is more scary, where only governments or super governments, like structures like the EU, have set up requirements for privacy, for example. And I am in the camp where we need that. And some additional restriction would be wise, and some additional oversight that's not even industry specific. In the area of certification, I also do believe that designers of the UX area should be licensed. I don't understand why it's different than a structural engineer or an architect, right? If you're a structural engineer and the bridge falls down, you lose your license and you go to jail, right? Same thing for an architect. Same thing for a doctor or a lawyer in every country in the world, right? But designers themselves, probably because the panorama of educational approaches runs from 8-week boot camps to PhD programs, can't decide what the core educational set is. We're very immature. But I too am in a more conservative camp there. And I think that designers should have to go through a certification no different than architects do to practice in the field and be responsible. And just as an aside, as a designer working independently on medical products, I do have to carry malpractice insurance, like a doctor.
Very interesting. Thank you, Daniel. So does it also mean that designers should be more specialized? So one should be more into, I will say, medical application, other into cognitive, and so on and so on?
I think it depends on the individual. I think it's helpful as each of the problems gets more complicated to be more specialized. But in this, I do and have had clients in cybersecurity, and I have to say it's completely different than anything medical, right? So it's somewhere between a preference. It's just harder to be a generalist, as each of these areas is so complicated. It's an investment of your time, and you have to be curious. But if you weren't curious and you weren't creative, you shouldn't be in design school in the first place. You probably wouldn't make it through the curriculum. So, but anyway, to come back to the core point that we were on, I am in favor of both more general regulation, and I am in favor of the idea of certification, of designers, but it's hit so many impediments, at least in the United States, and blockages, and which professional societies would do that. The Human Factors Society in the United States tries to play that role, but it's not a credential that most employers would look for.
Thank you very much. So I have my last question, but before that I have to point out that I think that Piotr is designing the slide on the fly, and I just have to say sorry, Piotr, but you named our panelists wrong. There is two Davids on your slides, and one of it is it's a Daniel. So and it was very funny to see how you just actually put the names on the fly. So my last question is to you, Daniel, and it's maybe more narrowed and focused on the process of designing, because if I understand you well, the second case was about a process that allow us to produce prototypes, right? And prototypes are just one part of the design of an application. So I think I want to ask you, how do you then, when you have this prototype, communicate and cooperate with the other designer, or how do you proceed with the design process, like with the aesthetics and so on and so on? Do you also use, or do you teach how to use other AI tools, or do you think that the last part, or the other part of the design process should be in the hand of only of humans?
Well, to clarify, while I showed this generative AI tool based on some of my work in semantic interaction design, I do not allow students to use generative tools in my classes. I want them to be able to do it themselves, right? Because if you can't master the methodology in your head, you would not be able to understand whether you've got garbage coming out. The main advantage to basically the generative technology is ultra rapid prototyping. The advantage being you can quickly test something, and you can test more iterations. So you're not making the assumption that you shouldn't be making the assumption that the generative output is correct. And as a kind of an aside, I attended 2 different classes, master classes in AI for generative AI for UX. And there's a really interesting one, I think it was the Interaction Design Foundation, but I don't remember who sponsored it, about generating personas, using ChatGPT to generate personas and journey maps. And the caveat is it's all fiction, right? Everything that's generated is fiction, and now you have to go validate it. And I would say to my students, this is nonsense, because if it's fictional, then you need to go collect the data and do it the old way, right? And even to the extent that some of it might be true in what's generated, you can't audit it. You can't look at a model and say, do I agree with the graph, right? Or did the graph miss anything? So I'm not a fan yet, and I may never be, of bringing the generative stuff into the classroom. I want people to be able to do it the old-fashioned way. And I think if you can't, you probably wouldn't be able to be responsible and provide the oversight necessary when the generative tools do come into production.
Yes, actually, I can relate with that, because you can even be, it can be even be counterproductive, right? That you can be biased, but what you have from the ChatGPT and have this idea before you go and collect the real data, right, in your head.
Yeah, and you do see, I mean, in some of these recommender systems, they can make some really stupid mistakes. Not in the product I was talking about, but a previous client in the oncology area, where it could do some decision support and basically came up with a diagnosis of prostate cancer in a biologically female patient. Okay, you don't have to go to medical school to know that that algorithm was garbage. Okay, but there are corner cases that are a lot more, you really do need to go to medical school, right?
Yeah. Okay. So thank you. Yeah,
About
please.
generative AI and ChatGPT, because recently I listened video with it was interview with Evgeny Morozov, a very famous thinker, technology expert, but of course mostly he's a huge critic of the newest technology and the whole big tech industry. But he was asked about his attitudes toward ChatGPT, and the journalist mentioned that ChatGPT is not very reliable tool because of the hallucinations, because of the false information, etc. And he said that of course everybody sees this problem. And of course, it's related to this problem of garbage in, garbage out that Daniel mentioned. But his answer was interesting and inspired me, because he answered like that. Okay, everybody knows this problem, but the question is why. For example, in European Union, because the conference was held in European Union, somewhere in Germany probably, because the interview was during this conference. So he said, why, for example, European government don't work on that, don't work on their own, let's say, European ChatGPT, something like that. So I'm talking about a tool prepared for local governments in collaboration, maybe. In this case, everything would be more explainable or maybe more reliable. And he said that, of course, the data in European Union, there are lots of data, lots of information, and maybe countries should collaborate in order to compete in order to present alternative, right? Present alternative to ChatGPT. But of course, it requires resources, efforts, things like that. Maybe it's something impossible because of the competition between countries. I don't know. But this idea persuade me, and I think it's very nice idea, and maybe in future some countries decide to do it, or on this European Union level, because in this case, because otherwise we have only such tool like ChatGPT or Bing, and such tools created by big companies. So yeah, I just want to share this information from Evgeny Morozov.
Thank you, Konrad. Any last thought from our other designers, Ania, Agnieszka?
A little bit regarding what Daniel said about introducing generative AI into the classes. During your presentation, I had the question, to which I don't have answer right now, and probably we will need to just wait and see and just wait for the answer. But I was born before the internet was introduced to general public. However, right now I feel how much impact it had on my daily life and my patients. And what I mean is, internet actually made us wanting to have answers right now. Not, I don't want to, look through the books, ask people. I have Google, I have my keyboard, so I can get the answer to my questions like right away. And I'm wondering, and maybe you have some thoughts on it. I'm wondering how much of an impact there will be on our ability to problem solving with if we are going to rely on generative AI, because right now it is super useful tool for me on a daily basis in my work, or trying to find some fancy words while I'm writing some UX stuff in my designs, or trying to find some ideas for product strategy, some other ideas. But personally, I feel at some point it might just brings a lack of ability to solve problems in a daily life. Not now, not today, not even in a week, but I feel it might happen in a few years. So it is a question, but if you want to answer it, you may, or you may just take it into consideration after the meeting.
Well, I can comment on it. Obviously, I was born long before the internet, so I encountered the internet early in my career, but I had already been working as a designer probably for at least a decade. The idea of getting instantaneous answers begs the question of context, right? The reason we are educators, and I've shifted my focus pretty much entirely to education, is because we teach durable knowledge, right? And not tools. Tools change, trends change. And durable knowledge is about frameworks and context and understanding the larger way to process this information. So one of the problems with anything that's generative is it doesn't really have sufficient context that a trained human being would understand and know, and could therefore be used for to make judgments of everything, and judgments of design quality, judgments of ethics, judgments of business viability. And so the items that you described are kind of like in my class of, okay, the AI is augmenting you so you can do something faster, right? Or make up for something like you need to work in a language that's not your first language. Those are frankly trivial problems. And yes, AI is great at spell checking. I'm a horrible spell checker, even in my native language, okay? But it doesn't get you anywhere near the big problems that need to be solved. And it's a little bit, the context is the last sentence, not the context is save the planet. So I think we can look at these, and automation will increase. Automation is on its own curve, but automation speeds things up, but it also speeds up the problem, not just the solution. And I think that's what Conrad was trying to say, right, as well.
Yes, it's related with technological solutionism, right?
Yeah.
The term is created by Evgeny Morozov, but I think this is the problem that sometimes I see, even in my case, that sometimes I don't have time. I need to check something or create something very quickly. So then I use ChatGPT, but or such AI tools. But maybe for our generation, it will not be very harmful, right? Because we still use our minds. But I'm really afraid of next generations, right? because they will grow up with such tools. So it's so hard to predict the consequences, right, with problem-solving skills. So I'm really afraid of that. But of course, more research needs to be done in this field to see the consequences, negative consequences. Because as I said during my presentation, this approach, there is an app for that. Now it still is popular, but in future, I think it will be some similar expression. For example, let's ask ChatGPT, right? We don't know, so let's ask ChatGPT. So this is very dangerous. I think such tools are helpful only if you have knowledge to look at this, the information generated by, for example, ChatGPT. If you can look at this data and analyze and look in critical way, right? So in this case, okay, it's useful. You can compare what you think with this information generated by ChatGPT. Sometimes for me is a perfect tool for the inspiration, to inspire me to do it something, right? But it's better to avoid, if you want to care about your mind, your neurons, and you want to stimulate your neurons. It's better not to do it very often, too often, right?
Okay.
Okay, can I be a devil's advocate?
Yeah.
Yes, I will be a devil's advocate, because you are just flooding all LLMs into ChatGPT. Actually, I shared with you a link to the page, which are 2,500 AI tools. And I'm using cloud, but it's because it's more human. The other thing, I'm not only using LLMs, I'm also crafting them. And we designed, we are putting on the offline box, for example, Mistral AI, which is French LLM. And to make it less hallucination, we combine it with RAG, that is retrieval augmented generation. So I think it is. I think it could be a way to make it more effective, also in the design way. Yeah. So and also I have a little bit different attitude to in the class. ChatGPT, or like I told you, cloud or other LLMs. Also, Julius AI is good for programming. I encourage students to do first draft with AI, then we work with real companies, and during the interview with real companies, students fast will discover if the retrieval generation was crap or not. So I think that works also for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Piotr. I just wanted to say that if you give me a site with 2,000 or 3,000 AI tools, it's not a recommendation from me, because I want to know which one to use. So quantity is not quality.
Tell me what you want to achieve. I will tell you what to use.
Okay.
And
because
also
I
maybe
tested almost all of them.
A short comment to what you said. I have to say that I like hallucination of ChatGPT or others large language models. Why? Because it forces us to check whether information from such tools are reliable or not, right? It forces us to think, to analyze the data, right? So that's why in my opinion, it's good to have such hallucinations, because it's kind of pitfall for someone who don't analyze, without any thinking, use such data. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Konrad. Thank you very much, because it will be our last voice, and that it's a kind of hopeful conclusion. I was afraid that it will be the frightening one, about the thing that we don't know what will happen, but there is a little bit optimistic end of our conversation. I'm looking into the chat, but there is mainly a discussion about Piotr's example and experiments. So we were talking among us, and they were talking among us in the chat. So we get somehow two panels in one. I just wanted to say that I'm leaving you with a link to a very interesting article about how to design an interface that don't take out our cognitive abilities. I recommend you this article, and thank you all of you for your insight, for your talks, and for your presentation. It was very fruitful, and definitely will go back to all of that thoughts in my teaching, but also in my research area. Thank you again. Thank you for the invitation, Konrad.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye, and see you on the next event, right? Because maybe Piotr, you want to say some
Yes,
words very quickly.
so I want to tell about two upcoming events which we have in plan. That will be in May. It will be HumanTech Meetings and AI, the game changer in risk management. It will take place in the International Center at the Management Center, University of Warsaw. The host of the event will be Professor David Rubens. We will share all information with you. And I think the more, or at least so interesting, will be second meeting, HumanTech Meeting, AI and the game changer in the quality management. It will be hybrid event. You can come also in place. It will be in the Nutro Pharma factory. We will discuss all the issues which are related to AI, technology, and quality management. So you are welcome to come, because this type will be hybrid. Also, you are welcome to join on Zoom. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.